The purpose of today's webinar is to walk through two new pieces of functionality that we've kind of probably not done a great job of communicating to you. So this is the purpose of why we're having these kind of webinars, guides, videos, etc., and trying to really promote the stuff that we're doing behind the scenes at Concerto. From a product perspective, obviously the industry is moving forward. We're not sitting still either, and we're adding all these great new features in, and unfortunately we're our own worst enemy at promoting them. So this is why we're here, this is what we're doing, and this is what we're going to go through. So I'm going to start with equipment downtime. It kind of links into sort of site downtime and site availability as well, and site opening hours. Again, probably more useful where you have, well, I mean, if some of you won't have assets in the system necessarily, some of you will, depends how you kind of manage your estate really. But again, we've kind of added it in so you could mark a site down or a piece of equipment down, for example, and then that gives you some insight into whether or not that, you know, if you're constantly seeing it being down for long periods of time, actually, do you need to replace that piece of equipment, for example? It might be critical equipment and you want to see in a tile, which I'll get onto in a bit, actually that piece of equipment's down, and it'd be really useful to see, you know, urgent pieces of kit that are down. So I'll start on this. I'm going to share my screen. And I'm going to start at the start on this. So first thing is site opening hours. So we've added in against a site the ability to set opening hours. And the way you would configure that is you'd set the security profile setting against selected site, and there's a new option for site opening hours here. By the way, I'm not going to go through absolutely everything in ultra detail, because actually what we're doing as part of these product releases is pulling together short, like 1-2 minute videos on this is how you set up site opening hours. This is how you set up your actions for help desk for equipment availability. This is how you set up site downtime. This is really to give you a bit of a flavour of how it works, why we've done it, and give you some insight into how that can help you guys moving forward. So as I say, there'll be other videos and bits and pieces. We're doing a lot more work behind the scenes in terms of how we document this and pass this to you so that you can actually implement it yourselves. Obviously, a whole host of you on this call are already existing Concerto customers and have been for a long period of time. So the ability to self-serve and add these features in yourself would be really useful. So that's why we're doing those extra pieces of work. Anyway, site opening hours, if I was to click into here, what this will give me is a simple list of site opening hours. Again, for this, we've got a script we can run. So if you had a list of these and you wanted to do this wholesale, we could do this with a quick data import, really, because if you were sitting here doing it manually for every site, it'd be quite an arduous task if you've got a large estate. So again, we can kind of import this data in here. You can only have one record per day of the week. We don't support multiple opening times. So, you know, I open at 10 till 1 and then 2 till 7 at night, for example. We just do a block is open. If it's 24 hour, you just set it to be 24, you know, 00 to 00. Certain days of the week if it's closed, you just flag it as closed. So you'd go in here and set that. And the reason we have the site opening hours is to be able to support the whole equipment downtime and site downtime against operational time, because they're kind of two different things, right? So firstly, I could have, I'll take my laptop as an example. I could have a problem with my laptop at 5 to 5 on Friday afternoon. My working hours are 9 till 5. Come Monday morning, that's been offline or not working for, I don't know, two and a bit days, right? That's great. It gives me some insight in the fact that that piece of equipment's not been working, but actually it's not applicable to operational hours because I'm not actually working in those weekend hours necessarily. So actually, so operationally, if they fix that at 9:05, it's been down for 10 minutes, but actually downtime overall is something different. So this is why we've introduced this concept of site opening hours, so that you can look at that whole, yeah, it's down, but actually operation, it was only down for 10 minutes. It was down for 2 days, but you know, so you can kind of put some metrics on that. So that's where site opening hours came from, and we can sort of show that on here as well on the site. So again, if we go back to selected site, you'll see on the right hand side, let's come back, there's my opening hours against it. So if someone wants to look up a site or whatever, and when it's open, etc., they'd have that information there as well. So that's the start of it. Then against equipment, I'm going to go with equipment route here. So for given assets, you might not want to know whether a piece of equipment's down for every single piece of assets. If you know, chairs, tables, whatever, depending on how you've classified your assets or pieces of equipment, some of them you're not going to be too bothered about if it's down or not working, for example. But other things might be critical to your business. It might be a coffee machine, it might be a boiler, in the school. So therefore, if the boiler goes down, the school goes down because they can't go in because it's middle of winter, for example. So it's those kind of things. So you can specify at the category level. So in this case, I've got boilers, gas boilers here. If you click into that record, I can flag show availability status for those assets. What that means is it will display on the piece of equipment. So if you go into the equipment list, which I'll show you in a second, whether it's working or not working. There's a few other steps as well, which I'll talk through about how you set that up. But again, I'll get into the more granular detail on the setup as part of the kind of snippet videos that I'm doing, and I'll be able to sort of share those out with you. We will be having a hosted platform to manage those so that we'll have a bit more of a knowledge base and all that kind of good stuff. So I think you will really benefit from that, to be fair. So I've got that set. If I go into my equipment list now, in fact, there you go, I'm going to skip that, very Blue Peter style. There is my gas-fired boiler for Concerto. Okay, so you can see here I've now got some availability status updates in here. So at the moment it's marked as not working. I can set an hourly downtime rate. So if I had a piece of equipment that's not working and it's costing money per hour not running, you could set that in here. And it'll do some calculations. So cost of downtime, for example. You can see I've obviously had one in here already. It's down for 3 minutes. Total operational downtime is 3 minutes because it was in site opening hours. If that had fallen outside site opening hours, it might have, it fixed outside of hours. It could be 0 minutes for operational downtime. So we'll give that differentiation, and you can report on this stuff as well, and against the individual pieces of equipment and types and all sorts of good stuff. So the aim is to give you more insight into your equipment down the line. We'll display the last 3 downtime occurrences in here. Obviously, it's in the database. We can report out of it, and we can do this via quick reports. And in this case, if I go to my jobs and quotes here, you can see I've got 2 jobs. So here's the initial job here. Boiler pilot light's not working, won't fire up. It's obviously stopped working again. I've now got the pilot light not working again. So I can click through to that from here. And what I'll do is it'll take me to the help desk job. Again, Blue Peter style. It's already in here. So I've got that there. And what I've done is I've already assigned this over to myself as an engineer. And I'll show you how this works. So this will work on the help desk app or the orders app and allow you to say whether something's working or not working again. And this is configured against the help desk actions. This will also work in the suppliers portal. So again, against order actions, you'll be able to set whether something is working or not working and allow them to, as part of those actions, to update the status of the equipment. That's what drives whether or not the calculations for equipment downtime and the costs as well. So if I jump into an action here, if I jump into mobile device ones here and maintenance team work complete, jump into update this here. And if we scroll down to here, we'll prompt for the availability of a linked piece of equipment. So basically what that's saying is tell us whether it's working or not working. So again, all configured against the action, so you can say its particular actions will give them that ability to say whether it's something that's working or not working. And the same applies for the supplier portal against orders using order actions. Again, you have the same ability to set those things in there as well. Very quickly, just to show you what would happen if you add a request. So if I pop in Concerto here and we jump down here and I select a piece of equipment, I'm just going to go straight to boilers, select gas-fired boiler. You get this prompt here, select the availability of this piece of equipment. And because you're raising the job, it's mandatory. We're saying, no, you need to tell us whether it's working or not working. So I'm not going to raise this job. I've already got one raised, but the way it works is if I already have one raised and it's not working, we go with the earliest value still. We're not going to add it in as not working again because it's already not working. And likewise, when a job is closed out, we'll take the earliest status of working again, for example. So if someone accidentally raises 2 jobs against something there, you're not going to end up with a mishmash of records in there. It'll calculate correctly. We've done some robust testing on this before. It's been relatively complex on when you get into the data side of things, but as I say, it's been well handled and it will cover those things off. So if I jump into the help desk app, here is my job. Pilot light not working again. I'm skipping ahead here. I know obviously this is not a normal workflow. I'm going to jump straight into work complete rather than going through the full workflow. And you can see here I've got the ability to say is working and available or not working, for example. So I'm just going to say, yeah, it's working. Save and sync that. That's going to pop up to the server. And then if we jump back into here and I go into my help desk job, just toggle across here. You see the status now marked as working and available again. So if I jump straight from here, go to the asset summary page, you can see now what that's done is calculated. It's now updated. I've got a total of 24 minutes of downtime. It's all in hours of opening hours, so we're now to 24 minutes of operational downtime, 2 occurrences. These are the date time when those things weren't, your piece of equipment weren't working. If we had costs attributed to it, we'd get that also calculated on here as well. So you can also raise this via fixed my. So again, we'll have the ability to say, look, when raising the job, if you selected a piece of equipment, you can say, is this working or not working? And we have a similar flag at a site level as well to say if not trading, for example. So it gives you the ability to kind of report these things in here for that. So that really is sort of a, equipment downtime in a nutshell. Really, it's quite useful. I think it's quite a useful tool. It gives you some insights. We're looking at some of the pages in terms of how we kind of collate some of this data in terms of sort of longer term insight of, hey, look, and this particular piece of equipment has been down 15 times and duration of, I don't know, 30 days and whatever else. Actually, maybe that's the one you want to look at. So we're going to look at those insights pages as well, and we're doing that around the system in the background. So there's kind of a bit of work going on that side of things. We have also added in equipment to tiles, so we can report on equipment that is down, for example, which leads me on nicely to tiles. So tiles, because I think this is probably where you're going to get the most use out of some of this stuff, and I'm going to walk through this now. This is on the home page, so this is not where you would typically land, as in like it. So it's what your user sort of defined home page is set to, but it is the page home that you land on typically, where you get these tiles, for example. So this is where a lot of time people default people to. And you can see here I've got a number of tiles. So I've got things like reactive help desk, PPM compliance, miscellaneous, remedials, etc. In order to configure this, again, controlled by security profile permission. So for the top level administrators, so probably you guys that are on the call, you can control whether people can set up their own tiles or whether you want to set them up for groups of users, for example. So if I jump into my security profile here, if I go on to general system roles, you've got these two options here. Tiles, user can administer other users' tiles, user can set up their own tiles. So you might go, actually, do you know what? I'm happy if they want to go and create their own. The point of tiles is that they're really, really straightforward tools to be able to build your own metrics in and report on certain elements of Concerto. Doesn't require you to write any SQL queries. It doesn't require you to go into quick reports and configure them and then promote them into a dashboard or anything like that. It is literally managed from one place, which I'll show you in a second. So it's really sort of simplifying the process, gives you some metrics on key areas operationally so that you can kind of run in and use that. And yeah, I think it's a really, really great feature, to be perfectly honest with you. I think it's really, really helpful operationally for people to be able to kind of jump in and see these things. The other thing you can do, if you go into administration, scroll right down here, and you've got this thing called tile administration. This allows you to create these tile dashboards for groups of users, for like an entire security profile group. So for example, where you might use that, in fact, let's jump onto that. Where are we? Tiles administration. So where you might use this might be if you're using SSO and you've got a default set of security profiles set for people, you might want them to see things like jobs where they're the originator, I don't know, quotes where they're originating, stuff for them basically. So this is your stuff, and you can have click-throughs and bits and pieces and limit some stuff down. So it might be used there. It might be you want to build one for the help desk team, for example, and actually all of your help desk administrators all use the same security profile. So actually you just go and create a generic one that everyone can just work off of. It just gives that flexibility in there. We also have this concept of teams. So teams might be, I've got a lead. So in this case, it's myself as a team lead, and then there might be Steve Jones here who's working underneath me. So you might have a help desk lead and some people underneath. It might be a regional manager. And he's got sort of like area, store managers or site managers that sit underneath that regional manager, for example. And it means they can toggle through and see their views as well. So if they're managing particular buildings or sites, etc., it will allow them to sort of look at those things. Templates. So if I jump in here, it's pretty much the same as what I'm going to show you in a second. If I was setting up tiles for myself, it's just you're setting them for an entire group of people. The settings in here are fairly simplistic. Again, it's where do you want to display them? So it's home, site home, or project home. which security role or specific users, and then you kind of build your tiles out from here. For the purpose of this, though, I'm going to go and have a look at my tiles because I've given myself permissions to do so. And this is where you'll see that kind of team member stuff. If I haven't got it set, I won't see this here. So let's have a look at tile setup. So, right, I've jumped into here. So again, I've got the extra permission to do it for other users, but in this case, I'm just doing it for mine. What you can do is you can create these groups. So this is add a tile group. So in this case, I've got reactive help desk. So this is all based on source data from help desk, PPM compliance, etc., etc. So you can build them out and group them how you want to build them. You might have a miscellaneous group in there. It's quotes. It might be some other bits and pieces in there. So if I take reactive help desk, I'm going to add a tile in here. I'm just going to call this equipment not working, something simple. In this case, I am actually going to use the equipment because it's kind of related into help desk, right? So I'm going to say equipment assets, and I'm going to say boilers, and I'm going to say not working, for example. I can put things like importance in there. We can put in subtypes of things in there. So if you've got specialist equipment, etc., and we can set some metrics to say, look, if we get more than 5 pieces of equipment not working, or one that's not working because it's critical in nature, for example, or statutory, or whatever, how you've kind of classified them, and it's not working, I want to see a count of 1, for example. So what this screen allows you to do is kind of say, right, well, what's the source data? In this case, I've picked equipment, but we've got a whole host of different sources from Concerto or data sources in here. So I'll add that one for now. We'll jump back in and I'll kind of show you some of the different bits and pieces in here. So other sources of data we've got, one of the key ones really, help desk. It's got a few more metrics in here, so you can things like job priority. So anything that is a P1, anything that is in the help desk type, reactive, anything in a particular status. So you can start building this into a set of metrics here to say, I'm interested in P1s. I'm only interested in if they're in the reactive help desk. I want to see if they're with help desk, i.e. triage or something like that. I'm really interested as well if it has, a particular asset type on there of boiler, for example. It might be that if it's a health and safety issue against that thing, I want to see it in here. So again, it allows you to kind of filter down and build this out. And then you've got things like dates, so target response date, target completion, etc. So you might say, oh, okay, anything that's got a target response date that's coming up in the next 1 hour, for example. So in this case, it'd be, is P1, is reactive in this particular status and is coming up within the next hour to its response SLA, could be completion SLA. So it means that it allows you to kind of go, okay, I've got these ones that are coming up to someone should be doing something, or these ones that should be completed by now. I can go and chase and see where they're up to, for example. So it gives you that kind of ability to group them down. I could take priority off for this and say, look, I want anything that is reactive that is coming up within an hour of target response date. And actually, I want you to group them by priority, because I might go and work through these, for example. So if I was to kind of set these, to response SLA 1 hour, something like that. So this will allow you to kind of say, tailor these how you want. I can set this in here. And it'll kind of come through up to here. Now, in this case, I've obviously not got one in here, but that's fine. I'll show you a working example of tiles in a minute. But you can see how we kind of cut and slice these in here. This is something that if you're on the latest version, you'll have. In fact, to be honest with you, in the last month or two, if you've been updated, you will have this version. You'll be able to have this functionality on there. It's there, it's available. It just needs turning on and configuring really, and a bit of a play about. Again, don't worry if I'm going relatively quickly or about being able to configure these. I've got a video that obviously goes through some of this stuff as well. We'll do those bite-sized videos to kind of go, look, this is how you set this thing. This is how you set this thing, just to make it easier. So if I come back out of here, you'll see obviously my tiles are updated. I've got extra tiles and things like that in here. Couple of things to note on here. Obviously, I can set the colors to say let's go up or down, etc. You can see the direction of travel since the last time it's cached. So we cache these in the background. Now we set this caching to be periodic. If you hit this page every time, then the challenge you'd have is that if everyone hits these pages at the same time, obviously then you're going to get massive performance spike. So what we do is we cache this in the background, and we can kind of configure this to say, look, every 5 minutes, 10 minutes, hour, whatever. So certain things you go, look, that PPM compliance stuff, you could probably set that to be cached once every 24 hours. You'd probably, or 12 hours or something like that. Your help desk, you might go, look, I want you to every 10 minutes, every time I come back to this page or backwards and forwards, I want that to be updated. You can still refresh manually. You've got this little button here. If I click into my open pest related jobs here, this is where that filtering came in. I can click into that. If I was to go and do something from there, I close it out or whatever, then I can, I'll update from there. So the other great thing about tiles is it's not just the ability of seeing what jobs they are or what things they are. It's the fact that, hey, look, I can actually, these are filtered to my 2 jobs. I can go and do something from here. I don't have to navigate back. I can actually go, right, I've filtered my 2 jobs that are really important to me. Right, I need to make sure that that is done. I'm going to send a message to the supplier, or I'm going to, pass it to an engineer, or whatever your process might be. So it's not just the, hey, look, great, I can see some information on a dashboard. You can action it. That's the real value of this as well. So you can configure it easily. You can set it to be your metrics. You can do something with it. So it's really, really quite intuitive to kind of go through that end-to-end process on here. We haven't covered every single data source and bits and pieces. I'm sure at the end there'll be questions of, can we add extra data sources and what things? And and look, guys, we've kind of started the journey on this with the core areas of the platform. I'm sure there'll be people from estates on here. There'll be people that specifically look around health and safety or whatever else. And we'll look at expanding some of these. We're working on that whole feedback loop with you guys, being a bit more communicative. I won't even try and pretend to do that word again. Communicate better with you. We'll go with that. And the point is, it's a partnership, right? We're here to work with you guys, and this is why we're doing it as well, is to kind of give you that bit of a show and tell, get you engaged, get some feedback from you guys, and build a better product for everyone, really. So yeah, from here I could action this, and I could move this through the various stages as well. In this case, this is quite an interesting one. So if I go back to the tiles, I'm just going to jump into this one because I think this is another feature that's probably slipped under the radar. It's relatively small, but it's quite a powerful feature. So if I jump back into setup tiles, we have these things called help desk tags, and I'll show you in here that they exist. So I've got, where are we? Help desk tag or pests. Right, we've got tags. How do they work? Well, if I jump into the admin, and again, so there's a little bit off, but it kind of links in. And as I'm talking about help desk, I think this is, again, it's quite an important feature. It's probably slipped on the radar. It's only a 2-minute thing for me to show you this anyway. Again, we have this thing in help desk admin. It's called tags. You can see these 3 tags that I've got in here. This one in particular is pests. I can hide this from the entry of the job, so I can't pick it, whether that be a job or quote. And I can say, match these phrases in the description of the new job. So if I put in to a job, mice, rats, or pests as part of the description, it's going to automatically tag that help desk job with pests, right? So if you've got certain key things like urgent, health and safety, whatever, you could tag it and then it will pull that through so that the help desk team can see that visually on the help desk. It would also work with the tiles. So in this case, I've got pests set up. If I go back to my homepage, I've got 4 open pest related jobs. My tile is looking at pests. And if I jump into a new help desk request, and I'm going to use good old Concerto. It's got a real mice problem, this. Brew house. Pop this in for me. And let's just go with building fabric for the purpose of this. Pest control. Pick the right one. There we go. Mice are present in the building. Something like that, right? In this case, we're allowing priority, but it doesn't really matter. And then go, right, submit that request in. What's going to happen? That's tagged itself because it's looked in the keywords against the description. So when we're doing the save, we look at the keywords. If I go and refresh this tile now, I have 5. If I click through to it, if I click that P2, there's my new one that I've just raised in there, literally just now. And from here, I could then go, do you know what? Right, I'm going to assign that to the maintenance team, send that over, put it to an operative, do whatever I want to do with it. So, from a triage perspective, dead simple to kind of go in, see those jobs that come in, click on it, do something actionable with it, move it on. So really powerful tool, I think, Tiles in terms of that. I mean, I'm just giving you the examples from help desk. There's other areas of the platform we cover. If I jump back in, I'll show you the other data sources. So we've got things like quotes, case management, remedials, orders, occupations, projects, suppliers, equipment, assets, etc. And we're also going to be looking at putting these tiles onto the supplier portal as well, so that you can kind of build these metrics in for the supply chain as well, so that they can easily manage it in the same way as help desk could from here. So yeah, so that again, tiles in a nutshell. It's available now if you've got the latest version. In fact, anything in the last couple of months, if there's been more sources and things added in since, and more metrics and measurements that you can put in there, but it's available now. If you get the latest version, I'll have all these sources on there. As I say, not every source has got every single piece of data that you might want, and this is where we kind of get your feedback from this, and obviously while we're engaging with you as part of this. So yeah, that's equipment downtime, and that's tiles really. As I say, there'll be some additional videos and guides and bits and pieces that come with this, so don't worry too much if they you want a bit of help or assistance on the setup side of things. They'll be available to kind of help you with that stuff as well. I say videos will be recording the sort of snippet videos over the next sort of week or two, so we'll get the platform out to you guys and you'll be able to view those videos. Right, I think question and answer time. Let's see what we got. Right, okay, so first question I've got from Daniel. How sensitive are tiles? Will a roof tile pick up, will a filter pick up fireproof and tag that as a roof issue? I don't know if it's a wildcard search. I'll be perfectly honest with you, I'll double check, Daniel, because it's a really good point. I think it's whole word, but I'll double check as to whether or not it's looking as part of the word. I don't think we're doing a wildcard search against it, so roof wouldn't be necessarily fireproof. I will double check though, just to confirm that. But yeah, great question, really useful. Damien, do we have the option to add other sources of data? Being able to generate tiles using data from the contract notes area would be hugely beneficial to our clients. Yeah, so not at the moment, Damien. That's again, really great question. At the moment, the sources are kind of fixed in terms of what we've developed so far. I think really the feedback loop from you guys in terms of this is how we're using it, it'd be really useful to have this, and we could have these metrics in there and things like that. It'd be really, really useful to sort of set that in there. But again, we're on a journey at the moment. We've kind of gone with the sort of the primary bits of this first, but I think that we'll add in some more bits and pieces as part of that, and we'll feedback. So yeah, Damien, we'll as part of the vote up and down stuff and the whole kind of feedback loop to us, yeah, we'll look to add some extra bits and pieces in. But at the moment, you can't do it manually. It's all coded in to basically speed it up and make it as efficient as possible. So yeah. And another one from Daniel. Can you backdate downtime? Boiler might break at 9 AM, but wasn't reported to help desk until 11 AM. We can't at the moment. We might do something in the future that we might have that might actually help report on that is a tool that we're possibly bringing in that would allow you to report things a little bit quicker. I can't say too much more about it at the moment. It's going to be massive. It's going to be really helpful for you guys. So this would be for general staff to be able to raise and log issues, for example. I'm not going to say too much more than that. We're working very much harder on comms and things like that. So as soon as that's available, I'll let you know ahead of time. But I think there'll be a tool that will help with some of those issues anyway, in terms of reporting problems with equipment, etc. As part of that. Have I missed any questions, or has anyone else got any questions at all? Okay. I guess a couple of things for me. I'm probably going to send out a bit of a follow-up survey to this, to be honest with you. I kind of want to gauge how this was for you guys, whether it was useful, if there's things that you'd like to include going forward, etc. Oh, I think someone has put another one on there. Let's have a look, Lucas. Can we filter on classifications and tiles? Let me have a look. If you haven't, we will add it in, because I think that's pretty fundamental to this one. We've got asset type and subtype, Lucas, but yeah, no, at the moment we haven't got classifications in, but I think we could add that pretty easily into there. So yeah, again, this is the kind of feedback of how people are using it and what they're using it for, and making sure we're covering the key data points. So yeah, we'll look to add that in, Lucas, don't worry. Okay, let's say I will send out some comms over the next day or two, just to you guys that have been on this call, because I think be really good to get some feedback from you guys as to whether it was helpful, whether it was useful. You know, we'll be communicating a lot more about how we're going to be kind of engaging with you guys in terms of new feature sets, what's coming out the door, giving you visibility of things like our roadmap, even at a high level. I'm not going to promise that this is definitively happening here and here and here, because things and priorities do change, but giving you a view of, look, these are the things we've signed off and what we're going to build and how we're going to, give you a rough idea on how they're going to be built. That whole engagement process is going to be, is part of my job role, and going forward to kind of work with you guys and communicate and make sure that you're getting the most up-to-date information about the product. Okay, I think that's everything from me. I know we obviously put it in for an hour. Unless anyone's got any other questions, has anyone got any more before we call this meeting to an end? I'll give you a minute. You're going to be stuck with my face until then, but I'll give you a minute or so if anyone can think of anything else. If not, feel free to jump off. And yeah, I'll send some follow-up stuff out to you guys. And hopefully it was helpful. Good. Great stuff. Okay, guys. Well, look, I think we'll call it there. Oh, someone snuck one in. It's good. What about tiles for applications? Again, yeah, great shout. I think from a source data, I think we've got orders. I don't think we've got invoices and applications in there, Carolus. So I think we need to add in, like I say, I think what we want to do off the back of this is probably get a list of, look, these are the, and as part of this feedback to you guys, I'll give you a definitive list of these are the sources, and we'll look to see when we look to add in these other types and sources in there, because I think, again, from a finance perspective, they'll have different ways of looking at stuff and they'll want to do certain things. I'm sure estates will have certain things, rent reviews and all that kind of stuff. I know we've got estates action centre and things like that, but if you're putting everything in one place for someone, it might help them out. So yeah, another great question. We'll look to probably add that in at some point. Again, just with some of these things, we're not going to be able to add them overnight. We do have a roadmap. We are building certain feature sets and things like that in here. So what we'll look to do is phase these in. And again, this is where that kind of voting mechanism will come in for you guys as well, just to help. If everyone says, yeah, I absolutely want applications, but I'm not too bothered about, I don't know, projects, getting something extra, project requests, for example, then yeah, we'd look to sort of prioritize that over the other one. So, okay, right. Well, let's call it there, guys. Hopefully it was really helpful for you guys. It's really weird for me sitting here and talking at people and not being able to see anyone, not everyone replied, but you know what? Fine, I can do that. Thank you very much for attending. I really appreciate it, and we'll call it to a close there, and we'll follow up on some of these soon with new features. So yeah, thanks very much, guys. Cheers.